Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of my live tea tasting. I've got a really great, kind of a bit of a controversial blend for you guys tonight, so I'm going to dive right in. Tonight's blend is something I've heard quite a bit about, but I haven't tasted it yet, but we'll discuss that in just a moment. Tonight's blend is the Freak of Nature Oolong from the Rare Tea Cellar. And this one, I'm on the fence so far, and I'll discuss the reason why in just a moment. But first, let me talk a little bit about the tea itself. Now, the story behind it is, hey Sneha, welcome. The story behind it says that the tea itself comes from the Wuyi Mountains of China, and it says the trees experience a massive change in temperature in the space of a single day. The temperature creates an outrageously buttery shortbread component to the tea, like the ice wine of the tea. Of the tea world, there's a limited supply of availability around the world. Now, that being said, hey gamer, welcome. That being said, I took a whiff of the tea, and it's got like a super duper buttery smell. Hey Ma, welcome. It's kind of creamy. Kind of minerally, just a little bit, and it smells like popcorn. And usually, when that happens with an oolong, hey Anna, welcome. Usually, when that happens with an oolong, that's a huge indication that it's been flavored and that it's not naturally done. I did some research. I was not able to find whether or not it's flavored, and in my eyes, that's kind of cheating a little bit. And that whole story behind the extreme temperature change between one and the other might just be a bit of malarkey, but I can't prove it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start tasting this to see if my taste buds can tell the difference better than my nose. So far, my nose is saying yes, it smells like it's been flavored. I can't prove it, but we'll see. So let's first look at the liqueur. Taking a look at that, it's really, really clear. However, there is a little bit of residue I can see falling to the bottom of the cup. That's indicative of powder from oxidation. Usually it's crushed and not crushed. It's bruised, rolled. I've spoken about that before. So that could be a residue of the powder itself, or it may be an indication of flavoring, depending on what kind of flavoring they used. Some places use powdered flavorings. Others use, like, they steam it onto the leaf. Oh, excuse me. But I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt here, because this is the first time. What was this? A good check is if I steep it for the second time. That is true. Do I have any extra water? I do have extra water there. So that's, if the flavor remains, then it's good. Yeah, you know what? That is a good idea. I think I'll do that. I'll drink this one relatively quickly, and then give it another steep and see if it remains. That is actually a good idea. Let me get my clock. I hadn't thought of that before because, I was too busy. Hey Teresa, welcome. I was too busy trying to do the research to find out. But, I mean, ultimately, taste buds are what's going to give it away. So, let's give it a shot. First impression. What are the health benefits of an oolong? I mean, there's so many different health benefits for tea as it is. Let me take my first sip and I'll talk about it, because I need to hurry it up. Yeah, it tastes extra buttery. It doesn't necessarily taste artificial though. Like there's very, very little mouthfeel. But there is a big presence of butter, very creamy taste. Yeah. So far, if it is artificial, it's not overpowering. So it might be lightly flavored, if that. I mean, right now the smell is stronger than the taste. Right now my taste buds are kind of also leaning towards flavored. But of course that'll show in the second steep. It'll probably show more. It's still pretty good. Like the flavor is nice and milky and kind of creamy. So I like the flavor if there is a flavor involved. Okay, so health benefits of oolongs. In general, tea is usually really good for digestion. It's good for like your heart. It's good for what's the word? Metabolism. It helps boost your metabolism. Usually green tea more than black tea. Oolong has also been said to have effects on like the brain. It helps you focus because of the caffeine balanced with the L-theanine. It gives you an energy boost, but it doesn't give you the jitters, so you're not going to be as distracted. Yeah, that is really good though. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I really like the flavor. So I mean, like, whether or not it's artificial or okay, no, I'm gonna step it back a little bit because artificially flavored is different from being flavored in general. There is no what is this? Would sweetening it damage the flavor profile? It depends on your taste, really. In my opinion, and this is just me, I wouldn't flavor this. I wouldn't sweeten it, only because it would kind of take it out of balance, so to speak. If I put any honey and butter, they go well together, but like butter on its own is its own flavor, its own flavor category. I personally wouldn't sweet this, but everybody has different tastes, So if you like to drink sweet creaminess, go for it. I mean, I always encourage people to explore, to do what they like with their tea until they find something that they actually really enjoy most of all. You know what? I don't even have to finish a drink. Let's go ahead. I'm going to grab a separate cup. And we will do a side-by-side tasting while the water heats up. This being an oolong, it was steeped at about between 180 and 200 degrees. And I did it for 5 minutes rather than 3. Normally they say 3 to 5 minutes. Because this is a Taiwanese style oolong that has been rolled. Even though it comes from China, it's been done as a Taiwanese. Because it's been rolled, it can take the higher heats and the higher temperatures. So I did this at about closer to 200 degrees rather than the original. There we go. Let's set it for 5 minutes rather than the 3 minutes that oolongs usually go for. No, I'm not gonna lie. Like I don't normally like flavored teas unless they are advertised as being flavored. For instance, Earl Grey. Earl Grey, you know, is flavored because they put flavors in it. When they try to market an oolong as something special, when it's really just buttery flavored oolong, and it's not natural, that kind of takes away from the authenticity of it. And the difference between that and a scented tea, I've spoken about before. What they do with a scented tea is they put it in a room with whatever they're scenting it with, whether it be lavender, jasmine, usually something flowery. They put it where the flower blooms and releases the scent, and the tea leaves after they're prepared, it absorbs the flavor, and then they package it, send it out, and it goes on from there. If a tea is flavored, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad or it's inauthentic or it's cheating. It depends on what it's flavored with. I tend to go towards natural flavors. And the fact that this one doesn't have any kind of recipe in it, it should say all that's in it is tea leaves. And then like the story will be true. This doesn't have that, and I haven't been able to find any reference, whether it be on the site or people who've reviewed it, have not been able to say whether or not this is flavored. So right now I'm leaning towards the flavored bandwagon, and in that case I'm gonna feel semi-cheated, because if I want a milk oolong, I want it as is. Milk oolongs do not need to be flavored, and a lot of places add the flavor to it for their reasons, and it's usually like that overly buttery popcorn flavor, which this has. And honestly, I mean, if it's good, it shouldn't need it. If you are going to flavor it, say so. I mean, that's just my take on it. But if it tastes good, I'm not gonna lie about that. It's a good tasting tea, but I do feel kind of disappointed that it's like kind of undercover. I'll know in about a minute and a half whether or not it retains that flavor. And if it does, then I will be twice as impressed as I felt when I first opened it, because I was anticipating, I have a sweet tooth. Would oolong help with it? It depends on the oolong. The Taiwanese oolong tends to be sweeter, not overly sweet, but more of a vegetal creaminess to it. So I would go more towards the milk oolongs, the jade oolongs, and the alishans. Those tend to be sweeter, but they're not overly sweet. So it depends on what you're looking for in a sweet factor. I mean, there are other teas that are more naturally sweet. When we go towards the rooibos and the honeybush, those tend to be a little bit sweeter, less vegetal, more on the sweeter, earthy side. But you get the idea. It's a totally different sweetness schedule on there. So you're sorry to hear. I was excited about this one. I mean, yeah, but lesson learned. If I love to experiment. I love discovering new things, and here we go. All done. Okay. The moment of truth is upon us. I'll let that cool off for a little bit because I don't want to trick my tongue into thinking that the flavor isn't there when it's too hot, because that is the thing. Hot tea doesn't project its flavor, or rather, it doesn't project certain notes when it's hot. Like the cooler it is, the sweeter it is. The hotter it is, the more earthy and not flavorful. The more earthy and savory it is. So while that cools off a little bit, we'll talk about the tea itself. Now, as I mentioned, this is more of a Taiwanese oolong. So you'll see right here, it's been balled and pelleted and bruised and dried. You can see it's really, really small. Now, after it's been steeped, keep in mind this has been steeped twice, and it still looks like it can go for a third steep. After the after the leaf opens, you can see it's a full leaf. So it's about 2 to 3 times the original size, maybe even 4 times, depending on the leaf itself, because sometimes you have like a really big leaf that has been steeped a really long time, and so it just opens up even more. It looks like this can stand to be opened up a little bit more, which is a good thing because you'll get like 3 or 4 cups out of this if you do it right. Sometimes even 5. And each one will taste a little bit different. But getting that done is going to be a little bit difficult with a flavored tea, because usually the flavored teas will just wash out all the flavor. So, that being said, I'm going to go ahead and see. You know what? That flavor is still there in the scent. Still very strong and very buttery. And if this maintains that flavor, I'm going to be super impressed, because that means that this is the real deal. Okay, it's maintaining a large portion of the flavor, not as strong, but enough to convince me that it's more on the natural side. I'll do a side-by-side comparison. It tastes like, okay, steep number 1 is creamier still. It maintains the texture. Steep number 2 is more on the buttery side, a little bit more savory. And I'm getting more of the vegetal in the second steep than the first. So it could be one of 2 things. One, it is flavored, and they just flavored it a lot stronger than it should be, and so it's maintaining throughout the 2 steeps. Or 2, this is authentic, and it's just the first one took out the highlights, while the second steep maintained more of the vegetal, because the highlights have been taken away by the first. So this is a really confusing blend. If it's flavored very well, very strongly. Or option 3, it really is the real deal, and they just added a little bit of flavor to make it pop. Hard to tell. Because normally on the second steep, you won't get any of the flavor. You know, you'll get just a milk oolong. But I do taste some sort of buttery cream in this. And normally, milk oolongs have their own natural cream flavor. Well, natural cream flavor, texture, however you want to call it. This one is maintaining a good amount of the buttery smell. Not all of it, but you're not going to get that from an oolong either way. God, this is a tough one. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it is flavored. It's enough to be convincing that it's not 100%. So my guess is this is a quality oolong that has been helped. Again, I can't prove it. It is what it is. The flavor is strong enough for it to maintain that kind of flavor, so that it's fooling. It's easier to fool somebody if they don't know what they're looking for. I would have to have like a super duper seasoned professional taste this with me, and they will give me their opinion. And I know a couple people that I can probably bring this to. But quality-wise, overall, I could take it with us tomorrow, but it depends on if Sheila is there. If not, Thomas would know. So either way, I'm covered. But the second steep is like the flavor is strong enough to convince me that if it is a flavored tea, it's a very, very well flavored tea. So I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and say that it's a good quality tea with light flavoring. Best I can do. I don't want to make any claims because I don't know. And it doesn't really taste as artificial as a lot of flavored teas do. So I'm kind of like, I'm balancing that fence, you know? But it is called Freak of Nature Oolong for a reason. So maybe I am being fooled, and just because it tastes flavored doesn't mean that it is flavored. And really, like, the liqueur, I can't really tell because it's super clear. You can see the particulates, there's not very many particulates in there. Everything that was heavy has sunk to the bottom. I'm like, you see me thinking. You see how much I'm analyzing this, and it's really hard to tell. I think because like the more this cools, it's losing flavor a little bit. What if I did a blind test? I mean, a blind test would be between two different ones, you know? The wheels are smoking. Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's making me think, which is good in its way, because it's really testing my ability and my palate to distinguish between a natural oolong that's flavored, that's not flavored, and a flavored oolong that just tastes super artificial. Like, with a David's tea, David's teas, you could taste the difference. Yeah, that's, you could say that's fake. There's a certain kind of texture to it. This one has a sense of that, but not as obvious. So if it's a fake, it's a good fake. I'll leave it at that. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that it is, but it's hard to tell. It's a good fake, yeah. Like, you know, there's counterfeits, and then there's like really bad counterfeits. Like, there's the fake ID I had when I was 13. It's just like, no. I didn't really have a fake ID, but you know. I think as it cools down, I'm tasting less of the flavoring and more of the oolong in the second steep. How do you know if a tea is fake? Lots and lots of practice. Drinking a lot and knowing what it's supposed to taste like on its own, versus when it is flavored. I've had a lot of good, natural, flavorless milk oolongs. And I've had my fair share of fake ones. And let me tell you, like, the fake ones taste a lot like this. I mean, there are certain notes that you can detect, kind of like a creamy, plasticky, it's really hard to put my finger on. When it tastes like there's a note of film or a plasticky kind of film over the tongue, then it's like that. There's an alarm that usually goes off. This has a slight sense of that, and the problem with it being slight is milk oolong also has a texture. So it's really hard to distinguish whether or not that texture is authentic. So it's kind of like the difference between buttered toast and margarine toast. You know, you get that kind of sense that one is just not as authentic as the other. This one is starting to taste more like a milk oolong. Yeah, I think the flavor is starting to fade a little bit. Hey ZC, welcome. I think this stream is going to go a little bit longer than I anticipated because I need to come to a. Oh, no worries, Cece. Don't worry. I got you. Oh, thanks for the subscription. I appreciate that. I very rarely get subscribed to, so thank you. I very rarely get fooled by these, and I think I'm onto something. Because as I mentioned before, as the tea cools, some notes fade while others pop up. So this tea, the first steep, is still maintaining that creamy butteriness. It's maintaining that high butter, low vegetal kind of flavor. But this one is coming out more vegetal than before. The butter is still there. But it's not as strong as it should be. I mean, you're gonna get that from an oolong anyway. Like the every steep is gonna be different. And I'm thinking the more that this cools, the more I'm convinced this is flavored. Because that tea is just not maintaining as it should, you know? Yeah, it's starting to taste more towards the oolong side, and that's kind of a bit disappointing. Now that I'm really getting into it, and I'm able to confirm a little bit better that it is artificial, you know, and this tea that I paid $60 for is not authentic. You know, not that it's a bad tea, but they sold me on the story. You know, saying that there was the massive change in temperature in a single day gives it a certain taste. I mean, normally that temperature would have an effect. But it shouldn't have necessarily this effect. You know, if I was able to smell it in person at the store, I would be less convinced to buy it. Because it has that fake, artificial, I don't want to say an artificial flavor because I don't know if the flavor is artificial. It might be actually just steamed butter into the leaf. Oh, excuse me. Into the leaf. But it's not the natural oolong taste. So I'm kind of disappointed at that, but not really disappointed at the flavor. You know, because I mean, like there are some teas that just taste fake, and it just tastes like there's so much added to it. This one just really tastes like a naturally flavored tea, which I'm okay with. Had they just mentioned in the subtext that it was flavored, whether it was artificial or natural, that's besides the point. I'm more disappointed at the fact that they made up this whole story to sell it, and yeah, that's an advertising. That's an advertising thing. You know, you're always going to get a story behind it just to sell. But you don't, for milk oolong, the quality of it in general shouldn't dictate the need for a story. You know, if you like milk oolong, you can enjoy it. You know, this is for what it is. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let me do a little test. I'm going to run a search on their website for just regular milk oolong. Just to see if they have it. And they don't. And that itself is telling. Because if they don't have a milk oolong, but they have this special freak of nature oolong, that tells me that their whole stock of milk oolong is flavored. I'm kind of saddened by that, because I mean, like, this was done by a rare tea seller, and then it makes you wonder how actually rare their tea is. I mean, it just sounds like a marketing ploy. And I mean, this is the first time I'm tasting any of their teas for you guys. I did have a green pomegranate tea from them as well, and it tasted fine. You know, it was just green tea and pomegranate, and I think it had like one or two other ingredients to it, but by the same token, it was like I had high expectations because it didn't taste fake. It tasted like a green pomegranate tea. The fact that they are using this kind of a sales method kind of cheapens it for me. I might still drink other of their blends because I mean it's not bad. It's not a bad tasting tea. I just don't like being fooled. You know, I don't like. I was talking about that the other day where I had a debate with a tea salesperson who was trying to convince me that their greenish brown matcha was ceremonial grade. I'm like, no, it's super obvious that it isn't. You know, it was bad. I walked out of there because of the dishonesty. Maybe it wasn't intentional dishonesty. Maybe that salesperson was not trained as well, and she was just selling a lie. But by the same token, like, that turned me off. And this kind of turns me off too. Because I don't know what to believe for their other products. It tastes like, it still tastes like butter flavored oolong. And there's starting to be a drastic change between the flavor of the first steep and the flavor of the second steep, where the second steep is tasting more like a natural oolong versus a butter flavored oolong, which is this. So yeah, that second steeping was a good idea. Thanks, Nea. It was a good idea because, you know, it kind of tests the palate, and the more it stays and the more it settles, you'll get a good understanding of what's in the tea. And this is good practice, because this is the kind of thing that I need to do as a tea specialist and an aspiring professional in the game. And you guys know, like, it's really hard to displease me as far as teas are concerned. And I'm not displeased by the flavor. I'm not displeased by the tea. I'm displeased by the marketing. I prefer to have some kind of... I prefer to have like integrity, so that I know what I'm buying. If I do purchase from the rare tea seller again, one, I'm going to stay away from anything that sounds exotic, because I'm just not going to believe it. And two, I'm just going to stick to the regulars, the naturals, green tea, black tea. If they had a milk oolong, I'd get a milk oolong. White tea, stuff like that. Luckily and thankfully, I know of places that sell authentic. They tell you if it's flavored, and they tell you what it's flavored with. I don't know if this is artificially flavored or naturally flavored, because there's nothing on the website about it. And no matter what they say, I'm not going to be convinced that this is naturally the way the leaf comes off the branch. So, yeah, that's been my review. Questions, comments, anything you want to talk about? Now's the time. I'm opening up the floor. I'm going to answer Teresa's question as I always do. What would I pair this with? Given the buttery flavor of it, it's got a certain kind of creaminess, and I would probably do something like a shortbread, or a cookie, like a vanilla cookie, yellow cake, something that's sweet but not overly sweet. Shortbread. Yeah, I mentioned shortbread. Yeah, old man brain. Um, what else? What else? Maybe like a linguine with clam sauce. Something that's savory and creamy and kind of like with that flavor. I think it would work. I also did the Thomas taste without saying it's the Thomas taste. Um, so you can have that at night. I would not recommend it because generally oolongs have a lot of caffeine. Not like cup of coffee caffeine, but enough to keep you awake and aware when you're trying to sleep. It all depends on your tolerance. I would probably do it late afternoon. 'Cause I don't have a real a low tolerance for caffeine, so I can drink this stuff and be fine. But for people who are concerned about caffeine, yeah, 3, 4. I mean, it's good for like up till dinner time. I'll leave that there. Depending on if you have dinner around like 6, I would say that that's safe because 3 hours should be enough to get that caffeine out of your system. Again, depending on sensitivity. And here I am drinking 2 cups of this stuff, so. Got my last one. Okay, so I finished this cup, and I'm so gonna be peeing all night long, I swear. Have a couple more. Yeah, I'll just put that in there. Have a couple more sips. So, questions, comments, anything you want to talk about? Now's the time. I don't have any announcements for the group because right now, I mean, same thing as always with COVID. With COVID coming down, I'm in between trying to put together live events and also online events every so often. I'm thinking about doing a live oh, excuse me, not live, an online tea party once a month during the summer. So yeah, I'll work on that. Yeah, let's see. I think we could do that. You need a good nighttime tea. What do I recommend? I mean, I could recommend 100 of them. It all depends on your flavor profiles. So I know that you like the flowery, you like the jasmine, but jasmine is caffeinated. So I would start off with something more on the flowery side, but also caffeine free. So I would go with maybe like a lemongrass combination with mint and lavender. There is one, I think I recommended it to you as well, where it's all like mint and lavender. That was really good. There was anything rooibos. Rooibos is really good and sweet, so you'll get like you'll satisfy your sweet tooth a little bit. What else? Honeybush. Honeybush is a good way to go. It's really close to rooibos, but it's more on the earthy side. So it's I would recommend that one. Oh yeah, you see, I'm good at recommendations. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. This has been a wonderful experience, and it really got me thinking. It's a good challenge, a good exercise. So I'm happy I got to stretch my brain a little bit. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. This has been an incredible experience, and I hope to see you guys next week. Till then, have a great weekend. Lizzie, you finally have someone to talk to about tea? Oh, anytime. I will talk your ear off, I promise. All right. Have a good night.